And now, a thought from man.
You know, I really enjoy movies a lot. They're just something you really get into. It's always very engaging, the action's always fun, characters are great. But there's one thing I feel that we use a little too much, and that's CGI. It's just something that I feel like it's become a bit of a crutch. I just feel like maybe we should kind of take a step back. So I often ask the question, when is there too much CGI?
I don't know.
It's not that CGI is a bad thing in general, it's something that can be very good and can help build great creative worlds and all that, but the major problem is that it feels like it's used more as a crutch, instead of something that's meant to, do something that you just couldn't do in a practical setting. I just feel like a lot of movies decide to cut corners because, well, it's cheaper to just CGI everything rather than build great sets and everything. It's just kind of cheap in my mind. And I just kind of get this feeling we should kind of get back to basics a little and maybe make some great sets. They're always fantastic set designers, but sadly we don't get to see their designs a lot because most of the time we're just deciding, hey, let's get some CGI artists to make whatever landscape we want. And it's just like, oh, I kind of want to see a practical setting, A practical setting at least makes you feel like you're there. Where CGI, a lot of the time you realize, yeah, that's not real. I know I can't touch anything there. It just feels like CGI sadly isn't as engaging as a practical setting. That's just sort of a problem I feel we have with cinema nowadays.
No way.
I'm not really against all types of CGI. I feel like it can work in a few instances. Like say for Mad Max, that was a great example of the use of CGI. Whenever they CGI something, it's mainly to take something out, rather than to just put something in. Most of the time they're CGIing out the riggings for all the set pieces they needed to build. Or they'll have to CGI certain backdrops because that's just not the real setting. That's something they couldn't actually physically build. Now granted, that doesn't make the film perfect. There is a sequence at the end that's like, yeah, that was horribly fake. That was clearly fake. Granted, it blended with a real practical effect, but at the same time, a certain thing that happens is like, that was fake. That was obviously fake. I don't know why you did that. But either way, the thing about the CGI in Mad Max was it was blended with practical effects. The explosions you see are real explosions. They knew, okay, if it can be done in real time, we're going to do it in real time. If we want a flaming guitar, we're going to make a flaming guitar. We're not CGIing that shit. That's going to be real. And that was such a great thing about that movie. They also knew, hey, let's not CGI all the stunts neither. A lot of the characters do need to kind of get hurt and all that. But the thing is, we'll CGI when it's clearly getting a little too heavy, where it's something that, yeah, if that happened in real time, someone's dying. It wouldn't make sense to try to make that a real thing. But that's just sort of the thing about it. I just feel like a lot of the time we should be trying to kind of integrate CGI. CGI can be used to take away things that clearly are just going to get in the way, like say riggings for set pieces, or if you're trying to have a missing arm, it's like you can CGI the arm out. That works there. Or if you use CGI for the sake of like holograms. That always looks good in CGI because it's a hologram. It's not meant to look real. That's just something I feel more studios should start adopting nowadays. Just try to mix your practical effects with your CGI and just make it blend naturally. I feel that should be the ultimate goal when trying to use CGI.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
A very noticeable problem with CGI is that a lot of the time they try to go for heavy realism, and a lot of the time it doesn't work. Most of the time you're just like, oh, that just does not look right. That looks terrible. Like say for Star Wars Rogue One, it really looked weird when they decided we're gonna CGI Tarkin. And it's like, really? I mean, I get it. The actor himself is dead, and it would be kind of weird to just get somebody else to replace him. But to CGI him the whole time, it's like, he looks fine whenever he's not talking. Like if he's just standing there and observing, it's like, okay, it kind of looks convincing. But when he talks, it's like, oh, no, please stop, please, no. Granted, there is a bit of an exception to the rule with Leia when they show her at the end of the film. Like, it's obvious CGI, but it kind of works better because it's only for a few seconds, And you still kind of notice it's fake when she talks, but it's only brief, so you're not gonna be too distracted by it. Whereas with Tarkin, you get distracted by it. It's like, oh, I don't know. That's just kind of the weird thing about it. They managed to make it work when they know, okay, don't linger on this too long. If you linger on it too long, people are gonna take note and be like, that's fake. That is totally fake. CGI in terms of realism is a major double-edged sword. That's just kind of the fact of it, and I just feel like you really got to be careful when you're trying to go for that hyper-realism, because it will turn off a lot of people because you will enter that uncanny valley a lot of the time. It can be effective in some cases, like with, say, the certain characters or certain monsters that happen that are in CGI, it works because it looks like an outer-worldly being. But in other cases, it just looks fake. It looks like, yeah, y'all did not want to put some makeup on him or anything. Y'all just decided, here's some CGI, and it's like, oh, why? That's just sort of the thing I feel we need to kind of get out of when it comes to CGIing for realism. It can kind of work against you most of the time.
You have made time an ally of the rebellion.
I ultimately feel like there are two routes you can go when it comes to CGI. You can go the hyper-realistic route where everything looks real, but you sort of enter that uncanny valley sometimes. Or you can go for highly stylized and very pleasing to the eye. If you go the route of hyper-realism, it's likely to work against you a lot of the time because the CGI you make now is probably going to look worse compared to the CGI in the future. Take, for example, movies in the 90s. A lot of those movies use CGI, and it does not hold up. A lot of the time, you're like, that looks terrible. Like, say, Mortal Kombat. They use CGI there, and oh god, does that not hold. Or Spawn. That looks god fucking awful. But they decided, hey, let's use it. Now, granted, when they were using CGI back then, it was at the starting phase. It's something that more or less they were still kind of figuring out. But at the same time, when you look back on it, it's like, oh, that doesn't hold. That doesn't hold as well as you thought it would hold. It just doesn't. And that's just sort of the thing about it. It's like when you go for that hyper-realism, it tends to bite you in the ass a lot later on. And then there's also the way of doing CGI in a very stylized means. Like Thor Ragnarok, it was really good, and the CGI, it worked because it was pretty, it looked nice. It's something that you just like, I know that's fake, but I don't give a shit. It just looks pleasing to my eyes because it works sort of like a cartoon or an anime. You know it's fake, but it looks so nice that you don't care. That's sort of the thing about it. It's like if you go for a stylized CGI, it's something that holds up years later down the line. Say, for example, a video game like Legend of Zelda Wind Waker. The game still holds up to this day with its graphics because it went for a cartoony style. It's something people have seen over and over again and don't get sick of looking at because it looks pretty and it still holds water to this day. It's something that honestly can never look bad because they decided to go for that stylized means. That's sort of the reason why a lot of 3D animated movies that use CGI, it looks great no matter what, like your Pixar's, your DreamWorks and all that. It still looks pretty good to this day because they were like, we need to go for a style here. That's sort of thing I realize when it comes to CGI. Stylized will always work better than hyper-realistic. Hyper-realistic, you enter an uncanny valley and a lot of people will say that looks fake or it just won't hold up years down the line. Whereas with stylized, it's always pleasing to your eye and it's something you just want to keep looking at no matter what. It's not something you'll just decide, that looks fake, I'm going to turn it off. You're aware it's fake, but you're just like, I don't care. I like looking at this. That's just something I feel more studios should try to incorporate when it comes to making their movies. Go for a more stylized approach rather than a more realistic approach. I feel like that works the best out of all.
Whoa!
CGI is honestly a great means to be able to make great things happen that you just can't do in real life. That's always a given. But the thing about CGI is a lot of the time it can take you out of the suspense because you're aware it's fake, it's not real. But sometimes CGI can work when it comes to making great landscapes, making great environments, or doing certain things that clearly can't be done in a realistic setting, like these stunts you see in superhero movies or a lot of these fights as well. The best approach of CGI, I feel, is always going to be the stylized CGI, the stuff that always looks fake, obviously, but it's just so eye-pleasing that it doesn't matter. You're willing to sit down and just look at it because it's just that engaging, it's just that pleasing to you. That's always something I feel works better with CGI. It's something that should be done as a means to enhance a shot rather than just for the sake of, well, it's cheaper to do and we can cut corners. That's just something that says I'm lazy and I don't want to put in a lot of effort. It's like you can put effort into your CGI. I encourage you to put effort into your CGI because you can turn out such an amazing product by doing so. But that's just a thought.
So you can rock.